Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and more Monster Hunter Wilds talk. Today I want to cover all things Frenzy, a very strange system in Wilds at the moment. I made a video covering all the interesting details and important stuff to know about tempered monsters, and so I'm back for the Frenzied monsters now. Frenzied monsters are an entirely unique type of monster to be thinking about, at least on paper. The reality of what we have here feels unfortunately pretty undercooked and somewhat ignored as a system. Not only that, frenzied monsters are seemingly bugged to potentially have less health than they should, and they follow a very restrictive rule set, keeping them pretty much in only one place anyway. Frenzied monsters are tied directly to gore magala and are a key feature of the high rank story. As we follow that, we find out something pretty cool. The frenzy has infected the living entity that is the Dragon Torch, an organic structure that runs through basically the entire Forbidden Lands. And with it being organic, that apparently meant the frenzy could infect it. This then begins to affect the weather, and then also the apexes around the Forbidden Lands. So it all culminates in a big hunt of these crazed versions of the apexes, and then Gore Magala himself right after that. Unfortunately, there isn't like a special frenzied version of the apexes that happens here, but it does result in us fighting the high rank versions of those apexes and getting them unlocked at the time. Overall, I think it was a really cool and interesting way to introduce the frenzy into current gen, but seemingly the story ends about as soon as it started. So while gore affects monsters with the virus now, thanks to its spreading scales and breath, it's apparently very limited in what is actually achieved. So while we do end up with a monster type to be concerned with, they basically did very little with it big picture. So what do we actually have here? What monsters can frenzy and where? Now there is one monster that can technically overlap with gore and should ultimately be frenzied because of that, but is somehow immune to it. And that's of course the flagship, Arkveld, who, fair enough, is just built a bit diff. Though technically there's dahaad too, the apexes don't seem to be affected by the frenzy as we saw in the story. Either way, it's monsters that show up in the iceshard cliffs that are vulnerable to the frenzy because that's where gore is, of course. So that's Nerzilla as the first frenzied monster we see in the story, although uniquely this frenzied monster shows up in the Wounded Hollow, which is an area close to the iceshard glyphs. It's the arena of the game. But other monsters that can show up and can be related to the iceshard glyphs and thereby be frenzied are Hirabami, Yian, Gypsaros, and of course Blangonga. The thing is, they're quite rare as a spawn, since I guess you've got a roster of normal monsters that might spawn, and then the tempered versions that might spawn, and then on top of that, maybe you've got frenzied versions, specifically in the iceshard cliffs, of the specific types of monsters that could be frenzied even then. So it already feels like the chances of getting a frenzied monster is pretty rare. What do you get for hunting a frenzied monster? Well, you get frenzy materials, which are called shards and crystals. You use these when crafting various gore-related weapons and armor, so while their use is actually quite important initially, it becomes very limited in relevance. It's weird because really this should be a valuable material at least for something else, whether that's say melding or a different system like say the reinforced materials or something like that. The frenzy crystal rewards are just being a bit wasted right now in the current version in a very limited way. So what about the frenzied monsters specifically? Do they have anything unique about them? After all, take the tempered version of monsters in Wilds. They get this unique thing where they have tempered wounds. You can target these and break them open for special blue wounds, which when broken rewards unique materials called bloodstones, which are then used for melding and are actually a really valuable resource because of that, encouraging you to break them beyond the damage that it provides. So, do frenzied monsters have anything like that? Well, kind of. Visually, they are frenzied, you know, a bit extra spooky and dark and all that, but mechanically they have their frenzy mechanic. This means the virus that's applied to hunters can be applied by these monsters. But there's also their theoretical aggressive nature, their theoretical harder hits, and less theoretical smaller health pool. What's absolutely true here is that when afflicted by their virus, you need to keep attacking to cleanse that before the bar fills up and hits you with its negatives. You can use things like nullberries to buy more time by reducing the current build-up, and there's the skill antivirus, which you can find on equipment and decorations, which will help you cleanse that faster for more rewards. If you fail, you'll see the icon above your health turn red, and now you get to enjoy those negatives, which to be fair are not nice. There's no natural healing while you've got it, but worse, double damage is taken, which is certainly scary. On the other hand, much more likely to be honest, if you land enough attacks to overcome it in time, you actually end up with a buff. You enjoy an affinity boost, which when combined with 3 levels of antivirus, it actually is a total of 25% affinity, which is absolutely a meta thing to run, and why this doesn't feel that special as a mechanic, because we're all running it anyway, in the fact that we're running 2 pieces on many meta sets, if not 4, and the fact that Gore himself is an important target as a tier 3 monster that has some of the better rewards, so you're dealing with Frenzy normally there too. So it's unfortunate because it makes the Frenzied monster's special mechanic not feel all that special. You've got Gore Magala who can also be tempered, so he's got Frenzy and the tempered mechanics at the same time, feeling way more interesting. And then all of the Frenzied monsters are not remotely valuable as targets, and nor do their frenzied materials really matter. So all of that's kind of unfortunate, but it gets worse when we think about the other side of things. They're meant to deal more damage in exchange for their smaller health pool, but they don't actually deal more damage. What they do have is lower health, significantly lower health than normal monsters, which seems to make them relative pushovers, even compared to a regular monster, which is confusing. The low health situation may even be worse than intended and why it feels bad, though you want to take what I'm about to say with a heavy grain of salt because I can't personally prove or check this. There are claims that the Frenzied monster's health is smaller than even the devs may have planned, which is why they're just such a joke. Trua Cantor claimed on Twitter that because a multiplier isn't working correctly in the files, it results in their health being only a few hundred above base. So, like I said, I cannot claim that as fact. Definitely don't take it as fact, but it does feel right based on my experience with these monsters and how quick they die. So what do you guys think? So that's kind of what we can say about Frenzied monsters right now. Pretty weird. I do think it's cool they're back and all, but what are they actually adding to the table right now? Why do they have so little HP? Are they gonna add more, since there's only a few that can actually be frenzied, only linked to where Gore is, which just means one locale basically. And then worst of all, they have essentially irrelevant rewards. I do think the story concept for high rank was really cool, the way that the frenzy virus was essentially messing with the life skeleton of the region. The way that it caused the apexes to go nuts was interesting, but then they don't do anything with that from then on. You don't have frenzied apexes at all. Really, as an in-game mechanic, it hasn't done anything beyond technically add a different tag to about 5 monsters. We're hoping, surely, that it's going to grow and we're going to get some proper threatening frenzied monsters in the future. We know that something more challenging is coming in update 1, more challenging than tempered monsters apparently. Do they mean an expansion on the frenzied monster system when they say that? So again, we'd love to see something cool and special like frenzied apex monsters. Josh reminded me of the experience in 4U in that regard. With the whole Serigios thing, how the frenzied version of that actually had some impact. You're saying that you deal some damage to it and it'd pull that Gypsaros fake death thing, and then reawaken now in frenzy and not only look different, but be different. Creating a quite unique and cool experience that we can't really say for the version that we have in Wilds right now. At this moment, it feels like they know they can't bring Gore back again without doing something with the frenzy monsters in the mainline story and scenario, because it just needs to affect things. But they kind of did a very short, minimal story that started and then ended pretty quick in high rank. So it's a system that feels very undercooked. We know more is coming, so it might become a lot more than it is right now. Having some kind of growing frenzy storyline would be interesting. And again, I like the light telling of it that they did in high rank. Maybe that could peak with the introduction of Shagaru or something new entirely. But it would be cool if we had some kind of tempered and frenzy system working in unison. Imagine you get from tempered monsters the relics, right? And then from all kinds of frenzied monsters, you get the best decoration drops, allowing them to do 2 sides of these systems with different kinds of monsters. It's a cool concept, but for the moment, it just isn't a thing. So there is potential here, it needs an update, and maybe even a fix to their current awkward version. There is a lot of hopes for update 1 to introduce some kind of increased challenge, and they claim that's what's coming, something above tempered level. If that's something to do with a frenzied system and a whole new roster of scary frenzied versions of monsters, that'd be cool. But we'll have to see what it turns out to be. Let me know what you think about it all and what you might like to see in future updates. For now though, I've been Hollow, you've been you, thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.